your martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
I know Kung Fu. You know, baby.
Fists of Fail.
We're talking about Magnificent Butcher today, the 40-year anniversary of the film, featuring Samo Hung. And around the time of this release, Drunken Master had just released. And the popularity of that movie kind of gave rise to, what this film eventually became. And
which Drunken Master? I'm guessing
original Drunken Master.
Original, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that movie had drinking and people being drunk and such. And there's some.
Now that you say that, I guess I can kind of see now the influence that movie would have had on this.
For sure. And there's mention that Sammo Hung went to the directors and said, you did such a fine job for Jackie. Can you do the same for me? And unfortunately, this movie didn't do well in the box office when it first
Is this
released.
the same director? Or same maybe people involved?
Sorry, not Corey Yun. No, Yun Wo-ping was involved in this, actually.
Yeah, I know that. I was wondering if it was the director or the writer
I believe he was part
involved.
I think he was involved in the original Drunken Master as well. So, if I remember correctly. I might be
he
wrong.
was.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I've been
Correct
drinking
us if we're wrong.
I've been drinking before the podcast started, so memory's not the greatest.
Sure.
But so one little trivia about that is that movie, did have this character called Beggar So Hut-yi, who is the the mentor character for Jackie, right? And I don't want to talk about that movie too much because we're just going to go down this rabbit hole. But for this movie, they kind of tweaked the script a little bit in order for it to line up with what Drunken Master was. Like, hey, if it worked for Jackie, it can work for Samo. So let's make this movie kind of like that.
That's kind of a shame now, because if I think about the plot of this movie, that character could have easily been written out.
The Beggar So character?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
Which is kind of I don't want to say a shame, which I feel is kind of like unnecessary. Mm-hmm. They added when they could have simplified.
Mm-hmm. Well, that character is a different actor from the original Beggar So, because the original Beggar So passed away. So he couldn't obviously play this role. But they were going to have him in this movie anyways. And a little bit of trivia, that original Beggar So was Yun Wo-ping's father.
Wow.
Like an actual father, Simon Yuen. So in this movie, we do have a different actor playing the Beggar So character, who is the mentor for Sammo Hung's character. And he's in this movie predominantly. However, we have to make a quick shout out, or like a very noticeable mention towards the original mentor character in the movie. So even though this character plays the mentor for Samo, we have Samo's character's real master, the one who's
because he's part of a kung fu school.
Yeah, and he is Wong Fei Hung.
The character Wong Fei.
The character, but the actor is Kwan Tak Hing. This guy is I guess you could say the original Wong Fei Hung. He's played the character 77 times throughout all film history. Oh yeah,
that's all.
It's not enough.
Yeah,
I don't think Jackie.
Nothing to write home about.
Like Wong Fei Hung, if I wish Mark was here right now, because he'd just be like, "Oh, Wong Fei Hung, I love that guy. He's my guy." He's one of the most prolific folklore characters. Even though there are people in the production of this movie who are, through like the whole 12 Degrees of Kevin Bacon effect, they are somehow related to Wong Fei Hung, like the real person in real life. So, like as I was mentioning to you before we started recording, Chinese film history is like this weird, small, niche, ancestral thing. Because there's always like someone's related to someone in some way.
Sure.
All right, history aside, let's talk about Magnificent Butcher, aka Lam Sai Wing. Not Mark. Zero. What'd you think?
So I've mentioned a few times in this podcast that I would always be worried when revisiting older films because I mainly watch a lot of modern kung fu movies, probably starting from the 80s and onward. So when you go backwards, there's that danger of, oh, this isn't as good as what I'm watching now. I saw this like maybe 10 or 15 years
So
ago.
you have seen this before.
But the thing is, I didn't remember anything from it. And we're watching it now, I can kind of see why. Unfortunately, I don't think this movie holds up as a whole. There are definitely some highlights here and there, but I wasn't too crazy about it. Okay. I think now that you mention it, the insertion of the drunk beggar character feels completely unnecessary, right, and just kind of added too much padding to the movie. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we get metronome fighting sometimes. That's okay. Because it's of the time period. That's forgivable. I had this thought while I was watching the movie. So I wasn't crazy about the plot because I thought the kung fu was a little distracting from it.
Okay.
And I almost felt that this story would have been better if they played it without kung fu. If this became kind of like a gritty thriller about kind of mistaken identity, kind of like you killed my family member, now I'm after you, and revenge and vice versa.
Right.
And they played it a lot more serious without comedy. Mm-hmm. I thought this would have been a little better. But with all the comedy, with all the kung fu, the story just didn't really do it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You just need to travel 40 years back in the past to fix this.
Yeah.
41 while
right,
they're still in
right.
production.
Mm-hmm. It's not bad, but it was a little forgettable for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will agree with you there. Not I don't agree entirely, but I will say it is on the more forgettable side because I have seen this movie several times and I always forget I always forget what actually happens in the movie until I press play again and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, this scene happened and then this scene happened. It's not the most memorable movie. However, I do have more fond memories of it. Mm-hmm. So
it's kind of a complicated plot because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of case of mistaken identity or framing going on, and I can't even remember the straightforward plot synopsis of this movie.
Should I try to summarize the plot then?
Yeah,
real quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. Samo is the butch. His name is the Butcher Wing. He's also based on a real life person, by the way, who's a real disciple of Wong Fei Hung. History aside, whatever. So, Samo's character, he has a brother who comes into his long lost brother who comes find him, but the brother meets up with some villainous character who steals his wife. Mm-hmm. And Samo, oh man, you are right.
It's a little hard to describe.
Yeah, I don't want to go like then this happened and then this happened. But yeah, the long story short, there's the villain has he's established. He's very despicable in this movie.
Very.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I can do it. Basically, what happens is Samo's brother's wife is actually kidnapped by this villain character. It's kind of the son, I want to say the son of another kung fu master's kung fu master, and
a rival kung fu master.
Rival kung fu school. And so through some weird circumstances, there's a drunk beggar involved, and then Samo, the beggar, and then the brother are kind of trying to rescue the wife who has been stolen. And then hilarity ensues because of it. and then there's a lot of back and forth going on. Like they go there, then they go back, and then they fight, and then go back and forth.
Right. Well, there's a lot of confused alliances here, right?
Yes, so, that's a great way of putting it.
You don't know who, because everyone assumes that this person's the bad guy, but then they're clearly wrong about that. Like it's just like Samo, for example, thought that the beggar was the bad guy, and then vice versa. So they engage in a fight later in the movie.
Right.
And
He
then,
thinks his brother is a bad guy because the brother is beating up the main protagonist for stealing his wife, and Samo thinks like, oh, that guy's hurting another guy, let me help him out. But in actuality, he was in the right.
Well, it carries throughout the whole film, because even at the end, and I don't want to talk about this because this does kind of spoil the movie. Like the main villain, he's the final boss in the movie, and there are motivations behind that we won't get into. But he assumes that the protagonist has done him wrong, and that's why we've engaged in this fight. But obviously Samo is just doing what he needs to do, because he's not wrong. He's just protecting himself and his loved ones. But also, it's not like he was technically wrong, but also because everyone's wrong, they engage in fights. So everyone just jumps to conclusions.
Yeah. I actually didn't like Samo's character in this movie. I felt like he caused a lot of these problems because of his stupidity.
He is supposed to be a lovable goofball in the movie. You didn't get that sense,
well,
right?
I got he was supposed to be, but I didn't like him because I felt like he wasn't always in the right sometimes.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so the main protagonist's father, who is the rival kung fu school master, I feel he's not in the wrong. He's trying to get revenge at some point.
Oh, you mean the villain, the main villain, right?
I wouldn't even call him the main villain.
No, you mean sorry, you're talking about the head of the rival school, right?
Yeah.
I completely agree.
He was completely in the right because it's more his son is the one who's kind of doing the nefarious things and causing all this trouble, and he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel bad that Samo has to fight him in the end, because he's just trying to make things right.
Right.
Because Samo kind of wronged him, for lack of I'm.
There's a lot of right and wrong here.
Yeah. I'm walking around my words because I'm trying not to diverge a lot of stuff.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. However, I do agree that the villain, he's not wrong. I think that he's not really a villain.
He's the father of the villain.
Yeah, he's the father of the villain.
He's kind of an asshole, but I feel that he is in the right.
He's justified.
Yeah, his motives are justified, because
I wouldn't say Sammo Hung is wrong for doing what he had to do.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that.
So I'll walk that back. Yeah.
Okay.
He wasn't wrong, but I didn't like him either. So that's a problem.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the comedy in the movie. But maybe you completely disagree in terms of that. Like for me, like what kind of takes it away from me for his character is just the forced comedy, because I know they're trying to mimic what you got in Drunken Master, right?
Okay.
So they're trying to shoehorn some comedy in there to make sure you get some good feelings that you got when you watch Drunken Master. But I didn't feel like it worked here as well.
Well, yeah, some of the comedy is extremely hit or miss, especially when the brother character who has lost his wife is trying to commit suicide.
Oh, jeez.
So this drunk beggar is basically picking him dry of all his belongings while he's trying to hang himself.
Right.
It's funny when we talk about it, but when you're watching it, you're just like, I don't know. I don't think this really works.
I thought that kind of. I can't believe I'm defending this movie as much as I am. And not to say I hate this movie at all. I actually don't think it's a bad movie whatsoever. But I think they were trying to establish that character, he's inadvertently trying to coerce this guy to not kill himself.
Do you think that?
I think that's why they're trying to play it off. Like, not instead of saying don't kill yourself, and then make this a really dramatic scene. They want to play it for laughs and then convince the guy through his own volition to not kill himself.
Okay. I see what you mean there. He was coming across as a little too greedy in the beginning,
right.
and
he shows his concern as soon as the guy actually does hang himself.
Well, they played for comedy though, so it made me feel like he was just worried about himself and not so much the guy who's trying to kill himself,
Right.
Samo's brother.
I think I saw past that. I think he was genuinely concerned, but he just didn't want to like come off too serious.
Okay.
So maybe the director of the film was like, oh, being Yuen Woo-ping, he was just like, hey, we need to play this for laughs. Like, let's not take this too seriously because people want to come in here and remember Drunken Master was a funny movie. Ha ha ha. So I thought he was. I thought that the Beggar So character was. Yes, he doesn't feel like he fits sometimes, but he, when he did, it worked. Not always. Sometimes I thought he didn't always work.
I kind of feel his character was unnecessary, especially the training sequences. So and we're jumping around a little bit, but towards the end of the movie, for some reason, Sammo Hung gets training when he was already a pretty competent martial artist.
Well, he wasn't as good as the beggar. Was.
Yeah, but I don't know. I felt like he probably still could have beat the guy without his help.
You think? Well, we'll talk about the fights because
Yeah.
In one fight scene, it's Samo versus. I guess we're jumping into fights right now.
Sure.
It's Samo versus the beggar, and the beggar is basically beating him up. I mean, obviously. In some scenes, I don't know if you noticed in the movie, the beggar has a stunt double. I don't know if you noticed that.
I
don't know if you
didn't
can
notice
it. I mean, you might have to squint to notice
just a little
that
bit.
this big rotund guy is somehow he slims maybe like 3 pounds. 3 pounds? 3 pounds.
300 pounds?
Yeah.
Actually, he's not that big. That's a good way of putting it. He is rotund. Very, especially in the face. He's got these nice big round cheeks. I will say they did a good job of making this guy look disgusting as a drunken beggar.
He looks like a real beggar.
Yeah, he's just got the facial hair, and he always looks sweaty and is
Mind you, Yuen Woo-ping's father, who's supposed to play the role, like I mentioned before, he passed away before this. But and obviously they recast for him. But the original, Beggar So. He was a skinny dude. I mean, he's a really, really skinny guy. If you've seen Drunken Master, you'll know what I'm talking about. So for this movie, they casted this guy instead. However, he is a veteran Shaw Brothers performer, actor, I guess you would say. And he's still active today. I think...
That guy's still alive?
He's still alive, yeah. The fat dude, yeah.
Because he was he was playing an kind of an old man. I don't know if that was makeup or whatnot. So I'm
he was he's the villain of the story of Ricky O.
No,
he was in that movie,
really?
and he's the father of the protagonist in that movie.
Really,
the real life father.
Oh, the real okay,
the real life father.
Got it.
Jam, how the fuck did we go this far off the beaten path?
So should we get into the fights then?
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
So this is gonna sound really odd. But as I was watching this movie and I was paying attention to the fights, I kind of felt that a lot of fights overstayed their welcome.
I 100% agree with that, and somehow I still appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate a lot of the effort and the technical stuff that went into the fights because there are a lot of long takes, like longer takes in mids to zoom out to wide or wides to zoom into mids, where these guys are just performing nonstop choreography, very complicated choreography.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of it is on that beat, on that metronome beat. It's okay, but there were a lot of moments where I kept thinking, oh, they're still fighting, like kind of wrap it up, like get to the point. A lot of times we'll complain like, oh, there weren't enough fights in this movie.
Right.
This is a movie where I thought there was too many fights or the fights lasted just a little too long.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They do overstay their welcome. Some fight scenes, I feel like if you cut it by half, it would probably work just as well. However, I do appreciate the fact that the choreography is very complicated. Some of the most complicated I've ever seen. And I don't like to say that so freely, but like having complicated choreography, like it makes me really appreciative of the movie. So I mean, I'm glad that it was in the movie because I can actually see the performers actually doing it. And yes, you are right that it does feel metronomy. There's like, okay, block here, block here, block here, kick here. Make sure you have to hit those beats. However, I felt the pacing of it was good enough that I can kind of lose myself in the movie.
The pacing's consistent.
It's fast.
It's interesting because some fights have that older kung fu dancey style feel, and then there are some moments where things pick up, like surprisingly pick up in speed.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of confused, like why was this really fast versus this, which was really slow? So you'll kind of just have to watch to get a sense of that. But
yeah.
I was just a little, I wasn't sure why that happened.
Right. Well, let's go into at least one fight scene for example, like how we can break that down. What's the actual first fight scene? We get introduced to. We get introduced to Samo. We get introduced to his brother, who is looking for Samo. I'm just speeding through the plot really quickly. And then the villain, he wants, in a very rapey way, to steal the brother's wife. So he steals the wife.
Literally, just steals her, and we get a scene where the brother just gets beaten up.
Yeah, because he's not a competent martial artist.
I kind of like the scenes when somebody is, and this sounds bad, I kind of like the scenes when somebody is getting beaten up because it showed it didn't feel like there was fighting on a beat because it was just someone getting kicked around.
Yeah.
So it felt a little more realistic because it wasn't somebody fighting back.
Right.
It was them kind of defending themselves, and they weren't defending themselves on a beat.
Right, that's a good way to describe it because everyone who can fight, they're choreographed, so everyone's fighting on a rhythm.
Yes,
where like you can see that they're telegraphing each other's moves because they want to match that rhythm and that cadence. But anyone who can't fight, they're basically like that person on the dance floor who can't dance. You're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna like stumble around here, and that's what it feels like. Yeah. So you're right.
And you get the brother who's just kind of getting beaten up, getting kind of kicked around on tables, getting kicked through doors and whatnot. And because he's not on that rhythm, it feels good. Yeah. It's perfectly fine.
Well, okay, I want to talk about the first fight in the movie. This is the most iconic scene of the film, even though it technically doesn't feature Samo. It features Kwan Tak Hing playing Wong Fei Hung. Wong Fei Hung, again, being Sammo Hung's, or his character's master, like real master at the Kung Fu school. He, again, is, he played Wong Fei Hung many, many times. So when the release of this movie came out, like he's in his older age, right? So... Yeah. I'm very surprised that he was doing this little exhibition before the movie, the fight scene even started, because he was like doing like finger push-ups.
And they clearly have it all in the one take, so you see it's him.
Yeah,
it's not like they're up close on fingers. Yeah, and then you cut to wide, and then hey, look, you could see the actor's face.
Yeah, he did a pike stretch. He was like standing up, and he like without bending his knees, he was like he's essentially like putting his head through his knees.
Yeah, imagine you're standing up straight and you're going to touch your toes, but then you peek your head.
Yeah, like look how limber this guy is. He must be in his 50s or 60s.
He looked like an older gentleman.
Yeah.
I give
a little bit older.
I give him props. Yeah, they did a good job with making this guy look extremely skilled for being an older man.
Yeah. I'm sure that it comes from the respect that the filmmakers had for this guy, because again, he played the role so many times. They wanted to make sure that they honor him as much as possible. I believe this is his last time playing the character too. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure this is the truth. It's essentially like, I think of him as the Bela Lugosi of the martial arts world. I mean, oh God, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go watch Dracula. So yeah, he obviously in this one scene, he's taking on the kung fu master, like we mentioned before. He's the villain of he's the father of the main villain, and we have this playful fight that it starts off pretty playful. Like with them pretending like they're arguing over writing calligraphy, I guess.
Yeah, so Wong Fei Hung is writing calligraphy, and the villain's father is trying to show, like, oh, hey, I can do calligraphy too. Yep. And he's doing it in a very aggressive manner. Yeah. And Wong Fei Hung is trying to tell him, like, oh, no, you got to be subtle with your strokes. And so the villain is kind of trying to write over what Wong Fei Hung has started, and then you get this match of two hands blocking and striking while they're holding the calligraphy brush.
The brush, yeah. I mean, I'd love to talk about this, but I think that this is definitely the most highlighted scene. Anytime someone thinks about this movie, I think this is one that sticks out the most.
Oh yeah, this is
it's on
definitely the most visually memorable, especially considering that you look at the man's age and they make him look really good.
Yeah.
Just to go back a little bit, there's this extremely funny moment where Wong Fei Hung is sitting down, in about to write calligraphy, and the villain's father goes and literally kicks and destroys the chair from underneath him.
Yep. And
you cut then to a shot of him still sitting down, but he's holding him
squatting.
Yeah, he's air squatting. It's a great comedic moment. Yeah. I love it. And the guy plays it straight, like, oh, sorry, my chair broke.
It just breaks all by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we have termites.
Yeah,
he's about that.
It's good because he's likable, because he's so humble.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have much of him in the movie, but which is fine. Man, we really should talk about the fight, but I do like the fact that we're finally talking about him because, again, he's like the Bela Lugosi. He's like one of the most iconic characters when it comes, or performers when it comes to martial arts. He's not in the movie much, and I think it's because they just wanted him in the movie. One, for marquee, because they're like, oh, we have the original Wong Fei Hung. You guys should watch this movie. And then they threw in Beggar So to kind of replace him, right? Like as the mentor character.
Yeah, that's kind of a shame because Wong Fei Hung's character literally says, like, hey, I'm going on a trip. See ya.
Right.
Make sure nothing bad happens to the sign.
Oh, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do think that. Okay, maybe not unfortunately. For me personally, I think that was an okay decision. Yes, his scene in this movie is just to establish that he's in the movie, but he's not pivotal at all to it, and that's fine because I think the Beggar So character was adequate enough, and I think Wong Fei Hung's character is a little too serious because the movie is trying to go for comedy.
Really, I thought this scene played well for comedy. Actually,
but he himself is not a comedic element, right?
Okay.
I can't sit through that the entire film with him in it. I can't see every scene being the same as this. Otherwise, it's gonna turn into a Wong Fei Hung movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and we're not really talking about the fight, but just to go a little bit into that, I liked the idea of the very serious master reprimanding Samo Hung's character.
The entire movie. Yelling at him.
I would have liked that. I didn't like the Beggar So character, so I would have liked the serious Wong Fei Hung master just reprimanding his ignorance all the time. I think I might have preferred that, but that's not this movie.
Okay, sure. But I think we both agree though. Like we love this scene, right? Oh, I like the scene a lot.
I'm a little nitpicky on it because this is an older film, so it's a little slower. It's a little metronome-y. I wasn't crazy about the constant breakup of the choreography where you had to get like a slam zoom into a character's reaction.
That's old style.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. So this is just me being, this is just my personal opinion and not so much a critique of it. But what happens is you get some really nice hand choreography as they're trying to block each other while the villain's dad is trying to overwrite with calligraphy. And then what happens is Wong Fei Hung successfully blocks him and gets him out of the way. But then you have to have the the cut of him reacting and then saying something, and then Wong Fei Hung saying something, and then they go back into the fight.
That's a very Peking opera.
Yeah,
inspired
yeah. Unfortunately, because I watch a little more modern martial arts, that takes me out of it a little.
Yeah, yeah. They're going for that character moment where they're like, oh well, we have to. It almost feels like a comic book if you think about it, right? So like you'll have action that's happening, and then you'll kind of have a little break in the pause between the action, and you'll see what the kind of like a monologue or a soliloquy. Oh my God, remember those from high school? For the characters, and this is really big in old Chinese movies where like you hear like little excerpts, things that like the characters would just kind of spout out. A lot of proverbs, and that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about was the inadequate subtitles. And I had the subtitles on, and I think that you kind of lose a lot of this when you're watching the movie, and you're not getting literal translations. I think the literal translation would have worked better than just kind of paraphrasing what the people were saying in the movie. And that's the thing. Like whenever you have these little breaks and it cuts back to the characters when they're speaking, what they're saying is very like they're speaking proverbs, but they're very literal. And even though like it can be kind of lost on certain audiences, the literal translation works a lot better than just kind of like being like, oh, here's the general gist of what he said. And this is like a constant problem with this movie and a lot of movies of that era when they translated it for the American audiences. So I was fine with it. I think it works on two levels because one, the choreography is good for the most part. Like you might disagree with me there, but two, when they do break it up with like, like Wong Fei Hung is basically way better than the other master, right?
Oh yeah. It's very clear that he has the literal upper hands.
Right. But he's and in the actual middle of fighting, the action will just stop, and Wong Fei Hung will say a proverb, basically just giving him a lecture, be like, "This is what you need to do," using like these ancient Chinese proverbs. And these proverbs themselves will like they're not like little like you should do this instead. It'd be like, no, because the grass flows in a certain way and whatnot. You need to be like water and such. He's trying to be a little bit more poetic. Poetic, I guess, is the way to describe it.
And I'm fine with that. For me, I've mentioned a few times in the past too. I want continuous choreography, and because of a certain flow. And when you kind of come down, then I don't mind reactions and then people spouting nonsense or proverbs or something like that. So because we get choreography, but then it's consistently stopped with these proverbs, it kind of messes the flow up for me a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I can see that though. I don't think the subtitles help you at all. If you were
probably not.
I could do a better translation, and my Chinese is terrible.
Right.
But I could do a better translation, and you get a better sense of it though.
Sure. And this is just my personal opinion. I understand this is kind of the style of the time, so I'm not being so harsh. I'm just expressing how I like my fight scenes.
Right. I think you were robbed of something though. Like I can't deny that. Unfortunately, like thankfully for me, like I understood well enough, some of the Chinese, so like I understood like what they're trying to go for. But I reading the subtitles, and if I were to imagine not hearing it and not understanding it and just reading the literal translation, I feel like something's definitely being lost.
Sure.
And it would feel like the pacing of this is being slowed down by those little moments in the movie, in the fight scenes. Let's talk about the physicality of this fight scene.
Sure.
Because it is the most iconic fight of the entire film. In fact, it's the actual box art for the original release of the movie.
Oh,
so
really?
Instead of having Samo Hung, who is the actual lead in the movie, you have the shot of Kwan Tak Hing holding the brush in his mouth as he's writing calligraphy, holding the villain behind him in a wrist lock, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very, very awkward pose.
Yeah. But it's just to show that he's so comfortable basically being OP, overpowered.
He's pretty OP in this scene.
Yeah. His whole gimmick in this, I guess, gimmick in this whole scene is that he's essentially unbeatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of strength, in terms of agility.
Mm-hmm. And I was okay with that, actually. I don't mind when a person is clearly overpowered with another guy.
Right.
But as I mentioned earlier, there's a humbleness to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not trying to really humiliate him too much, because even though it went over my head, I understood he was trying to teach him a lesson as he was as they're fighting over this calligraphy.
Right.
So it's fun in that aspect. And even though he's OP, you still root for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know he's going to win, but you're kind of watching how it's unfolding.
Right.
So there's a great moment when the villain's father now reveals his kind of superpower.
Oh,
right?
his palms.
Yes.
His red hot palms. We can elaborate on that.
So this now changes up the fight a little bit, because the villain's father realizes that he can't just write on this, I guess, banner that Wong Fei Hung is trying to write on. So he actually has to use martial arts moves against him.
Yep.
And this just shows how skilled Wong Fei Hung is.
Mm-hmm.
So the villain's father has this kind of red hot palm skill, and it turns into him kind of like striking at the table, and then just like
you see these hand cutouts.
Yeah,
on the table.
he's smashing his hands to the table as Wong Fei Hung is kind of folding up the banner and like getting it out of the way, so he doesn't damage his calligraphy, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I think this whole scene is very fun. It's very jovial. It's not serious whatsoever. Wong Fei Hung is not playing the character, the role of non-aggressor. He's just evading, which is fine. I think he plays it so well. He's not trying to hurt the other guy, whereas the other guy is just aggressively trying to hurt him.
Yeah.
The motivations, by the way, behind all this is all about the villain assuming that the Wong Fei Hung student has hurt one of his people, whatever. So like you can understand why he's being so aggressive, but Wong Fei Hung is just taking everything very calmly, and he's just working around it and not addressing it directly, because the villain himself hasn't stated directly what the problem is. He's just he's just all of a sudden attacking him, and Wong Fei Hung's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. Like, unless you directly tell me what it is, it's like you come home from work, and then your spouse is like, how dare you? And you're like, okay, what? You should know what I'm mad about.
Right.
And
you've just touched upon a huge plot hole in many, many movies, where instead of getting straight to the point so people can figure out what the problem is, they have to fight first, and then later they'll reveal, oh, actually this is what's wrong. And then, they can start talking it out.
But we wouldn't have this fight scene if it weren't for that. And I'm glad that he didn't say it, right? He is like that very indirect husband or wife. It's just like, you should know why I'm so mad at you. I'm not even going to talk to you. We do have some pretty good choreography here. We have a lot of flipping around, good usage of props in the scene. So, there's, like you mentioned before, there's a chair that gets destroyed, but we also have the, a usage of the table. Well, once two legs are destroyed, the, the Wong Fei Hung stunt double, because it's clearly another guy.
Yeah, of course.
He gets on it, and it's framed perfectly enough, or well enough, that you can believe it. That even though two legs got destroyed, he's standing on top of it. He can still kind of balance it out.
He's acting as a counterbalance, so the table doesn't fall forward, and then all the calligraphy brushes, all the random things that are on there are still level.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? It's really sad to say. In the subtitles that I was reading them as well. It's like, well, if you finish your calligraphy, I will bow down to you. Essentially, what the villain says, and he says so. Like as maddeningly as possible. But in the literal translation, it's played for more comedy, and that's what I'm saying before. Like a lot of it gets lost when you're just reading it from a literal from the paraphrasing of what the original Chinese is, and I'm sure there's a dubbing out there that does it better than whatever
Do you think so?
read. Yeah, pretty sure.
I don't know, man. Those dubs back in the day, like, they were horrendous.
Yeah, I don't know. Like as iconic as this one fight scene is, I don't know what else there is to talk about. It's very fun. It's a very fun scene, especially with the calligraphy element going on. Like it's all about one aggressor versus a non-aggressor, and the non-aggressor essentially working around him, kind of just humiliating him. And that thing where he does later, where he draws the Wong Fei Hung. He draws the character on the villain's forehead backwards, so that when he touches his forehead and he looks at his palm, he sees the mirror reflection of the character that means like shame or respect. I forget which one it is. I think it's respect. I thought that was clever. Yeah. That's incredibly clever.
I like that a lot too. Yeah, it was a good way to show that he was essentially just teaching him a lesson. This whole time, like, I'm more powerful than you, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to fully embarrass you in front of all these people by whooping your ass.
Yeah, although he was.
He was,
clearly
yeah,
was.
but I mean, he didn't beat him up.
Yeah. Well, we got the display of his strength and like
his agility,
and also just experience. He has more experience than the other guy. Even though we did see in a previous scene that the villain was like doing his whole like practice
his
training, his forms essentially, but he's clearly no match for Wong Fei Hung. All right, so I can't talk enough about this one particular scenes, but we got to move on because otherwise we'll be talking about it for forever. We are told why the scene even happens. It's all because of Samo. Samo wronged, did something stupid, essentially.
Yeah.
And then we're told about the whole, we were introduced to the brother side plot, kind of, and that introduces us to the villain, who is one of the most disgusting characters in a movie I've seen.
Oh yeah.
He's very, very despicable. Not to a point where you're like you can't watch the movie, but you're like, damn, this character is disgusting.
Right. The movie very intelligently doesn't stoop to a level to make this guy reprehensible, because he is in his actions. But I never feel like it crosses a line to where you feel like, oh, I don't want to watch this at all.
Yeah, for sure. It's not because you know what, he does get his comeuppance every once in a while. So like he does something bad and then he immediately gets beat up.
Yeah.
So he gets a little bit of punishment, but he obviously doesn't learn his lesson. But at least you see a little bit of, the fact that he's getting,
he gets what he deserves.
Yeah,
ultimately.
Ultimately, but like along the way, he's still getting beat up. So like you get that little release. It's like you get tension and then you get release. If you're, there's a problem I have with a lot of films. Is like you get introduced to a character who's just unbeatable, and you hate him throughout the entire film, and you get no release of that until the very, very end. But you're sitting with that tension for the entire film.
Yeah.
And with this guy, like he's a competent martial artist, but he's nowhere near the level of Samo Hung or anyone else in the movie. So, but he's just a disgusting character all in all.
Yeah.
He's like he's like what is a combination of like a liar, a rapist.
Oh god. Just a little
incest.
Just a little warning. There is a scene of attempted rape, and I wouldn't say incest because it's a goddaughter. So
no, but it's okay. That's why I was gonna say the translation doesn't work for you, because what it actually was is the main villain's father. He married another woman, and that was the daughter of that. So it was basically stepdaughter.
Okay.
So that's his stepsister. She's trying to rape his stepsister.
Oh God. Yes.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's very terrible. So yes, there is an attempted rape scene.
And this scene lasts way too long.
Yeah, it's extremely uncomfortable, but don't worry if you're watching it. The act doesn't happen. Just
but
to
the
spoil
ending's
it.
also pretty terrible.
Right,
How it ends, it's not. It doesn't make you feel good, but it kind of catapults us into the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And like why the rest of the movie takes itself a little bit more seriously.
Yeah,
a little bit more.
I would
not
say that
by
it
much.
takes itself a little more seriously after that, because then it becomes more revenge story.
Yeah. Man, but before that, before we can get to the juicy stuff, we're introduced to Beggar So, who he discovers the brother who is upset that he's like he lost his wife, he can't do anything about it, and then like the beggar like talks to him and he says that he gets that kind of debriefed on like what his situation is. So he's like, because he is a good guy, he's a comedic character, but he's does what's he's supposed to do because it's the right thing to do. He goes to a liquor store or not liquor store.
It's like a restaurant that has the liquor on the side.
Yeah,
I would say.
Right. It's like a restaurant. So he goes there and he finds the villain, and he basically confronts him. It starts off comedic. I mean, the whole thing is comedic, right? So like, because Beggar So is so overpowered that he doesn't even have to like do much.
So I liked the beginning section of this fight. So basically, what Beggar So's character is doing is he is antagonizing the victim by making it seem like the
second hand, I guess.
The villain's friend is the one who's kind of fighting him, and he's using his body to do kicks and whatnot. And it's cool. I wish there was more of it.
Well, it eventually turns into like he's using it at first to be like tricking him.
Yeah, kind of like when you tap somebody on the shoulder and like, oh, it's not me.
It's someone else.
It's someone else. Yeah.
And then it just turns out into Beggar So beating him up.
Pretty much.
Yeah. In a humiliating way. Like we have a usage. Like we have a lot of good usages of like the scenery here. So we have the just to set up the stage here. We have just an empty platform, like empty stage, empty floor, and then on the right where they use these benches on each level, they have just rows and rows of just rum barrels.
Liquor, like wine.
Yeah,
liquor.
right. Wine, Chinese wine. And they're just using that, like they're using that to like show like them getting destroyed when they get kicked and such. And we have, just the beggar, like just toying with him. He's like doing these very evasive maneuvers just to avoid getting hit. Mind you, this is totally him doing it, by the way. This is totally the actor doing it, not a stunt double. Yeah. Not at all.
Well, there's a few moments where you get these scenes where you see his face and he's doing a little more simple choreography. Like he's using I want to say it's not a it's kind of like a flask, but it looks like a giant gourd.
A gourd, yes. Gourd,
it looks like if you watch older kung fu films, like anytime someone has alcohol, it's in like a giant gourd with a hole cut up in the top. He's using that to as kind of like a lasso, and he's kind of pulling the villain around and all this fun stuff. But then when you get the wides, it's clearly a skinny stunt double.
I don't know what you're talking about. What the fuck? He's clearly the same guy, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Well, what little moments that they had of the actual actor doing it, and the big fatter dude. I was surprised because you do see this one scene where he's hanging by the wall, and he's like he has his legs up, and he's just kind of scissoring them.
Well, what happens is you think he's sitting on top of a giant vase filled with wine, and the villain breaks it, and then he's still suspended in the air, and you realize, he's actually holding himself up by his flask, his gourd flask.
Yeah,
that he's kind of lassoed onto this.
Yeah, he's like holding onto it. Yeah, it's okay. Sure, we've established that the character's strong, but the actor himself, like he hasn't done most of his stunts the whole thing. So unless he has, some harness attached to him, he's actually doing that.
Right.
So I give him props for that. Like little things like that, I'm always impressed by. Yeah, but like it's played for comedy. We have moments where he grabs the villain and he shakes him out for cash. He takes all the money out. 'Cause he has to pay back for all the damage.
Cartoony type movement.
Yeah, and I do like the setup for that because before we even get to like him holding him up by the waist upside down, he grabs he basically just avoids all these moves. So he grabs one leg and then he avoids a bunch of kicks and punches and and then he ends up grabbing the other one. So he basically has the villain in a wheelbarrow where he's completely vulnerable and useless. And I thought that was clever. And we're clearly. We can't talk about every single little detail of the choreography, but I think that the creativity in the movie does shine here too, because you can see the characters are they have very elaborate choreography and they're all very complicated, but it works.
Yeah, I was fine with the scene. I kind of liked this scene because it was short. They didn't go into a full blown 3-minute fight. It's exactly what it needed to be.
But I think it was 3 minutes.
No, it definitely wasn't. It definitely wasn't.
It was short.
I feel like this is like a minute or two max.
Yeah. But damn, that's a very short fight scene because it sets us up for the next one where Beggar So takes on Samo. Because Samo thinks that he's on the right side of things, but he's clearly on the wrong side. So
they're fighting in a different restaurant.
This is an actual. I think I would call this an actual tavern, like a Chinese tavern.
Okay, sure.
It's an outdoor, second story tavern ish area. I like the scene a lot. I like this fight a lot.
I like this fight when Samo changes his fight style. Mm-hmm. That was something I guess I never picked up on when I first watched it.
Well, he does it several times.
Yeah. There's a lot of different, I guess, old school style styles, for lack of a better word.
Styles, yeah.
Like they do in this one particularly, he has a snake style, and once he switches to that, I noticed the speed of the fight actually picked up a lot.
Right.
So. For me, unfortunately, everything before that was a little too metronome. Mm-hmm. But you'll see that the actors are hitting these very nice compositions with their poses, but they're hitting it on a beat.
Right.
It looks very nice, but it looks like a dance.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to go for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we like to talk about that, I think that they were trying to make it look dancey. And, eventually we kind of moved away from that direction as time went on, but they wanted to make it seem like you can still see their poses. And that's very important when it comes to, the styles, like the crane style or the, snake and such. Like you can actually see, these little snippets of what these characters should look like when they're, mid-strike. So that's why it does feel metronome. So... yeah, I see it. I can understand how visually it doesn't work for some people.
No, I would say visually it does work because you can clearly see the poses. They're hitting these really, really nice poses. It's in a wide shot, so you get this really nice visual composition. But if you're in it for fight choreography and you kind of like that more visceral type of fight, it feels old. It feels dated, unfortunately.
Well, Beggar, so again, he's much more experienced than Samo. So in this scene, we just get him, just toying with him again.
Pretty much,
We have a good usage of props, which I like in this scene. I think that's the highlight for me. Using tables, chairs, et cetera, stools, I mean. I overall, just like the usage of the environment for this. For example, when he has him... when Samo is on top of the table and Beggar So is underneath it and Samo's trying to stab him in the eyes or something, but he just can't reach. He's completely confused, but he looks underneath and Beggar So is holding up the entire table with his leg strength, which adds a little distance. I thought that was cute. It's little moments like that. I thought kind of added to the whole experience.
There's a really interesting moment for me anyway, where you see. Where the technical aspect of the fight doesn't work. So just to elaborate, if you watch a lot of kung fu movies, you'll notice the use of powder or dust on people's limbs, like their feet or their hands, to kind of extenuate that impact. So there's a moment when Sammo Hung flips on top of a table and he lands on his feet, and you see the dust explode on his feet. But then when he's kind of moving around, you see the imprints of the dust on the table. And I don't know why, like I couldn't not look at that.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, I don't want to see that. I was like, stop it. And it was weird because I feel like we didn't need to see that powder from him landing. So personally, just I feel like they did need to do that.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I think a lot of other things in the scene kind of caught my attention more than that. Oh, okay, yeah, like I'm about to catch it again. I might watch it for the 4th, 5th time again. Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a lot of scenes where, like, the whole scene is just Sammo versus a stunt double, and every time there's some comedic punchline that needs to be delivered, they cut back to the real actor playing Beggar-so.
Yeah. This just harkens back to kind of what I was saying a little earlier, where the fights get breaking up because somebody has to say something. I kind of wish it went a little longer, because once Sammo starts utilizing his snake technique, I thought the speed did pick up a lot more. Like, I love how his hand is just kind of gliding up Beggar-so's arm, and they're just doing this elaborate choreography. But they keep on breaking it up with dialogue.
Well, God, like, I'm not okay. Even though I'm Chinese, I'm not the expert in Chinese martial arts. So, what I will say though, what they're trying to do here is show off that, like, yes, Sammo, because they even established later on that Beggar-so acknowledges that Sammo is a competent martial artist. He even says later, like, he even says during the movie that, like, you have you're pretty competent, however, you don't have the strength that you need to be a really good martial artist. So that's why we have training montages later in the movie. But in this particular scene, Sammo isn't as good yet, but we're also establishing that Beggar-so knows the styles that Sammo does. So that's why it's important. Because you'll notice that anytime Sammo switches up his stance, he's like, I'm going to try this. The other guy knows everything that he knows, but better. Okay.
That's interesting. I didn't pick up on that. But now that you mention it, whenever Sammo switches his style, he mirrors it.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you're doing it all wrong. Just like real Chinese people would say.
Nice.
It's a real Chinese thing. I thought that was clever. And again, I don't know if it's a cultural thing that you get lost when you're just reading it. God. It's unfortunate, because I feel like there's something that, like, if you just read the literal translation, I think it wouldn't be so lost on you.
Okay.
Yeah. So this scene happens. Sammo switches sides as a result of this. We have.
Does that lead us into our next fight scene?
Well, we have the rape scene. I don't want to talk about that. Or the attempted rape scene. It's very long. It's very uncomfortable.
It's not a fight.
There's kind of choreography.
Yeah, I mean, we could.
I don't want to talk about it because it makes me uncomfortable.
Right, we can disregard that. It's not as bad as you think.
Right. The outcome of it doesn't end in rape, but it's just as bad.
Yeah.
And it kind of propels the characters, both good and bad, to move in the plot forward. And then so what ends up happening is the main villain's father, or played by Lei Hoi-sang, the guy who was in 36 Chambers of Shaolin. Remember?
Oh shit, that's him.
Oh, you didn't notice that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I told you. You know, the Chinese film industry is really
it's a small industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that master, he's very upset. You know, he thinks that Sammo Hung has done him completely wrong. So he goes to the school. Now, this school has been kind of, I wouldn't say abandoned, but it's been temporarily closed.
Well, Wong Fei Hung has taken a leave of absence.
Yeah.
So the students are left to mind the school.
The director couldn't afford him anymore.
Pretty much, yeah. But we get, what's his name?
What? Wong Fei Hung?
No. You say I have face blindness to this guy?
Yunbio. Oh my god,
yeah.
again?
We got Yunbio. I remembered who he was this
Yunbio.
time. I was like, hey, Yunbio. There we go. I got it. I just forgot his name this time.
So he's in the movie. Very small role. Yeah, go on. What are you about to say about him?
Well, I mean, this leads us to our next fight. So the villain's father brings some, I guess, like henchmen.
Well, his students. I guess, right?
His students to, they're looking for Samo Hung. Right. He's not there, so they decide to, fight the students that are there.
Yeah. So we have a match between one of the veteran Shaw Brothers actors. I don't know his name, sorry. And versus some guy kind of playing like a monkey, monkey with like a Monkey King kind of character.
Yeah.
But we have that fight going on. Simultaneously, we also have Yunbio fighting against Lam Chengying, who played his... both of those actors were in the movie Prodigal Son. Yunbio was the main character, and the other guy was his mentor, his master.
Interesting.
So it's funny to see this scene, this fight, because they're fighting against one another, and it's Yunbio versus essentially what his master. And I believe this came out the next year. I think Prodigal Son was 1980. Really? So I should stop with all this fucking trivia shit. So yeah, we have a fight between Yunbio and this guy who uses a fan as his weapon, and kind of subtly he has a how would you describe it?
Is it like a scarf? What would
I guess it's a scarf of coins.
It's a scarf, but cleverly concealed. There's some coins, so there's weight to it.
Right, and he uses that to like slash at him, like cut at his chest and such. And it cuts back and forth between the two fights that are going on. But I think let's just talk about this one.
It's not too distracting for me because you get a lot of choreography before it jumps to the other fight. So it doesn't feel like a couple seconds, cut to the other fight, couple seconds, cut back. You get a lot of movements to fruition before cutting back. So this is a moment where it's okay that two fights are going on.
Right. I do like the choreography in this a lot. And I don't know if I noticed this watching this from start to finish, but I noticed that the choreography got more complicated as the movie went on.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too. So I didn't like the beginning of the fight with Yunbio fighting the guy who had the fan. It felt a little slow for me, but I understand because they were doing these movements where the guy was kind of tossing the fan, picking it up, using it to block. It looks visually nice, but I think you can only be so fast with those types of movements because I think the fan doesn't have that weight to have that speed behind it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that guy dropped the fan like 500 times.
Yeah,
They wanted to get it absolutely right. You're probably right about that. They probably did that at a slower pace in order to make sure that they did everything right. Like it starts off with the guy with the fan. He's essentially winning just because the other Yunbio doesn't know what to expect in this fight because he's equipped with weapons and Yunbio isn't.
Well, he uses the fan actually as a distraction, like kind of to conceal his face in a moment. And when he takes the fan away, he uses that scarf, that weighted scarf.
I thought that was clever
to kind of do a sneak attack on him.
Yeah.
I thought that was very clever. Unfortunately, a little slow for me, but that's just
we were literally showing that in slow-mo.
Just a personal preference. For me, this fight really picks up is when both characters are just doing unarmed combat, when they're just fighting with their fists. I thought that was really good.
Okay, before we get to that,
sure.
we do see that Yunbio, like he wisens up to it. Like he gets hit in the face once, or he gets hit in the chest. Sorry. With that scarf thing, and he realizes, okay, I can't let that happen again. So when he sees that happening, he uses that scarf against the opponent. So he picks it up and he kicks it at the villain's face. I thought that was clever, and then he immediately retaliates with a sidekick. and I thought the sidekick worked really well because you can tell he actually did it.
Yeah.
It's done in a wide. It's done slow mo. You can see that the point of impact, and you can see the Lam Tingying. He flies to the left, and he lands on the floor. It's great, and it happens twice. The second time, he gets kicked inside the school, and it's a same side kick. He gets launched in there, and then this is where we get to the, I want to say quote unquote underarmed fight.
Yeah.
You know,
They're just
where-
using their fists. They're just using their bodies. There's no weapons.
Yeah. So I did notice that the fight scene the fight choreography starts to pick up even more as soon as we get inside the school itself, because Yun Bu and the fan dude, they're fighting inside, and it starts off with it's hand-to-hand combat, and there's a lot of very complicated stuff going on. You have Yun Bu like catapulting himself up in the air and landing like face down, and he does like he does like all these I wouldn't call them flips, but he does like quasi acrobatic movements,
Which it looks kind of cool on screen, but it feels very useless in a fight.
Of course, it's useless in a
Yeah.
fight. It's supposed to be like a dance.
Yeah,
I
no,
know
I
what they're
get
trying to
that.
go for. And then it devolves into the villain. He gives up. He's like, "Fuck it," and he just pulls out these elbow knives that he has
I
concealed.
love that. The elbow knives. It's so. The only other time I can think of where that's been used in film is the Guyver.
No, MacGyver.
No, the Guyver.
I don't know what is that.
It's a bio sci-fi horror movie. It's based off a Japanese manga and anime.
Oh, okay.
Where the guy has these long blades that come out of his elbows, and he uses that to fight. For a frame of reference, in this movie, the guy literally has just knives come out of his elbows.
We kind of do get some choreography.
No, the
here,
choreography here is great.
Yeah, you can sense the danger that Yun Bu's in,
and it picks up. Like
Yeah.
the speed picks up a lot.
Well, if you think about it, if you have short, because even Yun Bu mentions it in the movie, he says like you have these weapons, sure, but they're really good for close quarters combat, but they're useless at a distance.
I wish he didn't say that
You think so?
because
I think that
because he's saying it to the bad guy. He's basically saying the bad guy's weakness, and he's conveying to the audience the bad guy's weakness.
Oh,
I
yeah.
prefer you to show that to us.
He did show it.
Yeah, but he said it
a
first,
lot of
and
long
then
kicks.
he said it first, and then he showed it. So
right.
I would have been fine if they just omitted those
right.
lines. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
So there's something I noticed in this fight. There's a moment where they're kind of scuffling, and Yunbyo is kind of rolling on the ground, and the bad guy kind of puts his foot down to kick at him, and Yunbyo rolls out of his top. What would you say? Not a gi. What do you call that? His jacket. Okay, let's say he rolls out of his jacket, and he continues fighting without it. And then later in the fight, when he's getting the upper hand, he then not in one movement, but he then gets back into the jacket as he's fighting him, and that's kind of how they cap off the fight.
Right.
It's a really, really subtle thing, but
I don't think it's subtle at all, but I think it's a really cool way of ending the fight.
Yeah. Well, I didn't notice his jacket came off the first time. Like when I was rewatching it, I was like, "Oh, nice." I was like, "That's cool. I like that."
There is this, right. There's one hero shot where he poses and he's like ready for more, and he essentially does what I said before, where he's essentially lecturing the villain for his follies in fighting. He does that hero shot, and he poses and such. But I remember everything leading up to it. I was like, holy crap! The choreography is so complicated. I can't even get into it because watching it, there's moments where like the physicality of it is more impressive to me than the actual understanding of the hitting the beats at certain times. There's like moments where like they're like blocking. Yes, they're doing it in a metronome, but in terms of like what is physically demanded of them to do, it's so impressive that I'm just like my jaw is on the floor, because like Yun Biu will like drop into like one-legged squat in the middle of blocking, and then he'll get back up, and then he'll go into like a pigeon pose, or like he'll do like these like very physically challenging motions. And you know how these work, like, they do these takes many times, so they have to get things absolutely perfect. So like, and like if you're doing that many times, like that's like working out essentially.
Yeah.
Like these are not easy things to do.
Yeah, and this is a case where we get these kind of long takes of choreography. It's all in mids or wides, and they're just going with this motion, and it doesn't cut.
Stop.
Yeah, it goes on for a while.
I'm exhausted watching them do it.
Right. This is one of those fights where it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's actually just the right amount. I wasn't crazy about the beginning with the fan stuff, but once the fight goes inside and it starts unarmed, it really picked up for me.
Right.
This might be my favorite fight of the movie.
Okay.
Maybe. I do like the other one that's going on too, with the guy. He's fighting with kind of a metallic pole, and it's a shame because I don't know who the hell this other guy he's fighting. He's just some other student.
Yeah.
I only knew Yun Bio because I finally remembered his face. These two characters are very. You don't know who they are. It's a shame. Like, this should have been Samo.
You only know them because of their allegiances, right? So
yeah,
one's
exactly.
The rival, one's not the rival.
Right. I mean, it's nice for the actors. Like, hey, you have this on your reel now. But in terms of story, who are these people? Why are they fighting?
Right.
It's this whole thing kind of could have been thrown out.
Right. Remember my theory that when Shaw Brothers was going under, Samo just casted a bunch of Shaw Brothers veterans to his movies, just because he didn't want them to be out of a job. I'm assuming that's what this was. He's just like, oh, you come here, like, do my movie, do this one particular scene. But I do like it because the guy with the staff, he's doing the monkey style, I guess. And there's little moments of this that I thought were really physically impressive. And remember, yes, you can do a flip. He essentially uses the pole like to pole vault and do like a cartwheel at the same time, using the pole as like a base instead of putting his hands down on the floor. He uses the pole, the bow staff. I mean, but it's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to incorporate another live stunt person in the scene to be in that choreography. Like, because he does that and then he kicks him in the face, and one wrong move and you can actually hurt yourself and the other guy very easily. Like, it's very impressive. And yeah, of course they cut right after that. But like when I saw that the other day, I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. And you were saying before that we have these incredibly long takes. And sometimes they won't even happen at the end of the take. Sometimes things like this will happen in the middle of it. So it's incredibly like jaw dropping when you watch it. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me, because for you maybe it'd be something else.
I like this fight because it starts off with a guy just kind of defending himself against the bow staff, which you're on the losing end of that. That weapon has the range. And so what the other student ends up doing is he gets knocked into a rack of weapons. And I thought this was really interesting. He grabs like a traditional wushu blade, but then he also grabs a nightstick, which I don't think I've ever seen that team up before. I don't think I've ever seen that combination of weapons used before. So he's using the nightstick in combination with the sword, and he's fighting the guy with the bow staff. For me, that's when this fight elevated a lot more for me, like weapon on weapon.
Right. So you get a little bit of both. You get the hand-to-hand combat, and you also have the weapons fight, and that's when he turns the tide and in his favor. So now he's winning the fight. And I thought that was clever.
Yeah, but I don't know who this guy is. That's the problem. Like, it's a cool fight, but I'm not feeling anything for him because I don't understand his role in this story.
Yeah.
Same with Yun Bio. Like, this is just getting ahead, but like, I like these two fights, but you can just watch it on YouTube.
Yes, this particular scene, with the not talking about the rest of the movie, this particular scene you could just watch without any
it's perfectly fine out of context.
Yeah,
because they actually don't really have a big role in the movie.
The only part of this that you need to fit into the context of the movie is the fact that the head villain destroys their plaque, and that's a big thing in martial arts movies.
Yeah.
Traditional martial arts.
After watching enough martial arts movies, I kind of got that.
If you destroy their plaque, that's a huge dishonor to them. So you don't
do you
that.
just not make like a backup? Because people are trying to, people are gunning for that. Don't you make like a prop, like a fake one? Like, aha, we destroyed your plaque. Nah, you got the fake one. You got the decoy.
How many backups do you think that everyone has of these plaques? You can't just Xerox them.
Yes, you can.
So yeah, I do like the way that the Yun Bu fight ends. Because it's so, I wouldn't say it's anticlimactic, but it's kind of hilarious how the villain, like how his opponent dies, because he stabs himself. Well, not that he stabs himself, but like Yun Bu forces him to stab himself in the stomach.
He kind of gets him away, and then his elbow kind of goes into himself. I wish we got a different framing of that shot because it wasn't clear to me in the beginning. I thought he just fell. I had to look a little closer, and I saw his elbow in his side, and I was thinking, "Oh, okay, that's how he died."
I thought that was hilarious. So the end of this turns into the head villain. He approaches the two of them. He's still asking for where Samo Hung is. That's why this whole purpose of this whole scene. And it's basically 1-on-2. So he's taking on these two students, and when he's about to deal a finishing blow on one of them with his signature quote unquote cosmic palm.
Yeah, that's
which we did mention when we were watching this together that we don't know how they pulled off the effect specifically. So the effect is that you see the actor like he has his hands out, palm exposed,
like towards the camera.
Right, but in the same shot, without any cutting, you see that his hands light up, like they go from flesh color to bright red.
Yeah.
And like we have some theories going on, like how they did that without like making the rest of the scene, bright red.
And this is before computers, so
yeah,
there was probably maybe some drawing on film. I don't know. It's a little hard to say. Maybe some literal light.
I was thinking the light thing. That's my theory of how they did that. Because, but how did they only light the hands and not anything else?
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I don't know.
I would like to know that too. Because the thing is, there's still movement going on the screen, so it's not like they freeze framed and then they had the hands light up.
Yeah.
So there's
that guy can just naturally make his hands turn bright.
Yeah. There's some trickery going on there. I would be curious to see how they did that because of the lack of technology.
Yeah. And the whole purpose of this is to demonstrate that this master can make his hands turn bright red, like basically like boiling red. So that when he strikes something, it does devastating amount of damage. And when he's about to deliver the finishing blow on one of the characters, Samo Hung, in a heroic way, comes in and he takes the blow for him. That sounds weird, but he gets like smashed in the stomach. Again, that sounds weird, but he's basically about to die. But then they eventually escape. And the next scene is him recovering, and then him getting training from the master, from the beggar, who we discover is also like knows everything that Samo needs to know. And we get a little montage here, like a little training montage. Like Samo is using, and this is what I was talking about before. Samo learns from the beggar that his style or his technique isn't so far off. It's just he needs to work on his strength, because in order to deal with the main villain, he needs to acquire better strength. His technique isn't so far off. So this whole training sequence is just about him like acquiring that, like holding a horse stance with his like 20-pound weights on or sandbags on his wrists, holding them out directly in front of him while he has a bamboo staff on his forearms, and he has to like push that up and down without dropping his form, like little very traditional Chinese martial arts stuff. We have him destroying bamboo and stuff, and I know that some of those bamboo sticks are actually or branches are pre-broken before the fact. But there are some moments.
Okay, it's okay.
It's fine. But
Yeah,
then
you know, you gotta kind of protect the actor too.
right.
So,
but then other moments, I'm still impressed because like Samo is like, you know, being a martial artist that he is, he's actually doing the real movements, and he's actually destroying what I can see doesn't seem like real broken bamboo. It looks like he's actually striking it and destroying it. It's very impressive. And Samo's signature style throughout all the years has been Hongga, and it's like the very claw-like fighting stance that he does, and it's very iconic, and it's nice to see that on screen that he's showing it off in different ways, not just in fights but also in training montages. With all that said, we get to the reason why we get to the final fight is because the villain, the despicable dude that we were talking about before, he ends up killing someone that Samo really loves or like is important to him. In a very, in my opinion, I thought this was really sad. It was a pretty sad scene because I knew it was going to happen, but I was like, I didn't want that to happen. And then Samo retaliates.
pretty much.
We get our
yeah.
final two fights. One kind of not being a real fight, and then the final fight.
Yeah, we could just get into the final fight. I don't think we need to elaborate on what happens, like why they have to fight. But you understand that it all culminates into this because of story elements that have happened.
Yeah.
So it's now Samo versus main villain's father, and it's a long fight. This is a long ass fight. If you're somebody who wants long fights in martial arts, then this is right up your alley. But
are you along those lines?
I enjoy. Okay, so this fight is long. It does change things visually and technically, so that it is not the same thing all the time. Like it goes from hand to hand stuff, it then goes to some prop stuff, and then they go into different styles, which is good. So it changes things up enough where I'm not like rolling my eyes at it. But it's too much. Like I feel like we kind of got it halfway through. Like we get it. Sammo Hung has gone through this training montage, and now he's better than this guy.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. You got that sense, because I didn't feel that way. I thought that the whole my complaint with this scene is that Samo isn't as good as the other guy, because the other guy's still a master and Samo's still a prodigy. You know, not prodigy, protege. He's still learning. So the whole point of the scene is that Samo is going to take on the other guy, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't have anything to prove by taking on the other guy. The other guy's just fighting because he wants something to prove.
Yeah.
But Samo can't beat this guy. It's only because the beggar So, who is still in the scene, is instructing him on how to beat him. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I didn't really. I see what you mean now.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
Zero. The subtitles are not good.
Right.
I think that's a problem.
No, I get it, because he's kind of coaching him throughout this fight.
But that's the thing. It's not coaching. That's the problem with the subtitles. So, literally, and either good or bad. There's times when the villain, he changes up his stance. He tries like one tactic, and Samo doesn't know what to do because he doesn't have the experience over the other guy, right?
Sure.
So he's inexperienced compared to him. But then the other guy, like Beggar So, he's just like, he says some poetic shit, literal poetic shit, and it just hit home with Samo. Like as soon as he hears it, Samo knows exactly what to do to counterbalance it. We completely missed an entire fight. I hope you know. We'll talk about it after this. Did you notice that we completely missed the fight? We didn't talk about this one particular fight.
Yeah,
but we'll talk about it after this.
Sure,
Just remind me. But anyways, so in this particular fight...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now you remember. We'll talk about it after, because we should save best for last.
Okay.
We're going out of order, but whatever.
Okay.
So Samo doesn't actually know exactly what to do against this person who's confronting him, but because like let's say like he's using I'm gonna use my style is like the water, like you can't go against the crashing tides. But then the beggar literally just says something like, oh well, you can just use like a cage to trap the water. But then cage sounds like dragon in Chinese, so
You
like
can't use a cage against water.
I don't know. My Chinese is not that good, so maybe I'm fucking this up.
There are gaps in between the bars.
Right, but like he says some poetic shit, and Samo just gets it, and then he's like, "Oh, cage sounds like dragon, so I'm gonna use the dragon stance."
Makes sense because of fire, right?
Okay, yeah,
but I feel like water overpowers fire. A lot
true.
more.
And dragons can technically swim, so I don't know. But there's some like poetic shit and that like is in there that works, and like it teaches Samo exactly how to fight against this guy.
Yeah.
And you lose all that in the translation, and that's a huge disservice.
I mean, I kind of didn't care though, unfortunately.
But okay, maybe sure.
Yeah.
Maybe
like I get it.
Regardless.
Well, I get it. Like so in my mind, he's coaching him. He's kind of giving him hints how to beat the guy. And that's fine, but as I mentioned earlier, like this fight just goes on.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's a 10-minute fight.
It's technically it's extremely impressive, a lot of the stuff they're doing, because as we harken back, I'm going to harken back to what we kept on saying. There's a lot of unbroken choreography going on, and you just get these straight up motions just constantly going and going before you get an edit. And yes, technically it's very impressive, but sometimes you're thinking, all right, well, what's going to happen next? Where is this going? And it just goes into more choreography. It just keeps on, they keep on fighting. And this was a little exhausting for me. I like fights. I like seeing fights, but you need to feel like you kind of know where it's going, or you need to change things enough so that it doesn't become stale anymore.
Right. You can probably... Okay, I think this fight has several segments. I can't quantify all of them, but like it keeps escalating because at one point the villain like he breaks out the glowing palms part, and then escalates the fight one level, and then it gets to a point where Samo uses the plaque, and I'm not gonna mention what the plaque's about.
It's like a giant pan. You mean?
Oh no, not the pan.
That's another segment. He uses like a giant wok.
Yeah,
like
he
a
uses
shield.
that. That's like another segment of the fight, and then there's another segment where he uses like I don't, without spoiling it, he uses a
plaque.
The plaque. We call it a plaque. Yeah. He uses that, and as soon as like that plaque is destroyed, the villain goes Super Saiyan 3, and like it keeps on escalating.
Yeah.
So like you're right. Like even though there's like the scene seems like it goes on forever, it goes on pretty long. If you just shaved out like half a minute for each one of those segments, it probably would have worked as well. However, I do like the physicality of this movie, the fight scenes in this movie.
I'm not taking away any of that. It's just it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
It's pretty exhausting. This movie felt very long to me, unfortunately, because it's just
for our
lot
format,
of plot.
Well, for our genre, this is on the longer side of things. Because
How
normally,
long is this movie?
An hour and 40. An hour and 50. An hour and 50.
Okay,
sorry.
so it's getting up
but
there.
But we normally watch movies that are only an hour and a half.
Right. I'm surprised this is so long.
Yeah.
Considering how old the movie is, I thought it might be a little shorter.
Right. It didn't feel too long for me, but I don't know. But you're right though. Like there's a lot of action in the movie, and they do drag on, for better or for worse. Like yes, in terms of if you just want to know the story, it does just feel like it's just dragging things out. If you just want to see a resolution to the fight scenes, like you might want to just like be like, okay, let's play this back at twice the speed. However, I really appreciate how physically demanding a lot of the moves are. Like Samo, there's this one particular shot I love in this one particular fight where Samo, I can literally name exactly what happens. Samo does a round off back handspring, back flip, lands, does a low sweep, gets up, and then does a butterfly kick, all in one shot, while the other guy's trying to kick him.
Yeah.
It is so hard to pull that all off in one move.
Yeah, he's jumping all over the place. It's fucking crazy, and it's him. I'm pretty positive.
No, it's him because before it all happens, you see his
him.
face, then you see a crash zoom out, and then you see him doing it.
Right.
Like holy shit, that is so impressive. But you're right. Like there are other elements in this scene that are they drag out because they're trying to play up the comedy. You know, like there's moments where like he's using a fan, or not a fan, but he's using like he's holding onto a wok. He's using that to block the movements. He's holding onto something as he's suspended over fire. Like little things like that. They wanted to again play up the whole comedy aspect because Drunken Master did it. We should do that too.
I mean, I don't mind the long fight. You just need the problem is it all takes place in one area. So visually, your eyes are kind of getting bored in that you're just seeing the same location over and over again, but just from different angles. If they could have maybe gone through a building and then changing up the camera angles, like it could have visually been different for you. But you're just kind of in this wide open space. So it's a little boring. It was a little boring for me in that aspect.
I think it's a budget thing, though. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Right. I get it. And I did say like the fight does escalate. It does do different things. They change style. They try to add props in it, but it's long. It's very, very long, and you feel it. You feel it. You're like, man, like, come on, somebody win. Like somebody do something already.
Well, I do like that, I do like that Samo kind of wisens up in this particular fight. Like there's, but it has a lot to do with the beggar character being in there, like kind of coaching him. But I don't like the way that it kind of turns the tide in favor of Samo, because once the villain breaks out his burning fists, burning palms, technique, he's basically unstoppable. So the only way to counterbalance that is if Beggar So kind of jumps into the fray and he also palms.
Well, he blocks a palm strike.
Yeah,
and
both palm strikes.
Yeah, and he essentially absorbs the hit.
Yeah. They both do similar powerful forces, so both their palms are all fucked up now.
Yeah, and essentially they reveal that he's now in a weakened state.
I don't like that.
Yeah,
I feel like that's such a cop out.
I completely agree, because that means that Samo didn't win the fight through his own ability. The other guy had to kind of help him out, which. I mean, he's been doing the whole fight, but you kind of want him to win through his own, abilities.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Through the logic of the film, the other guy's a master, and Samo is still a student. So he shouldn't win based off of just experience alone. However, it's a movie. You want to see him win because he's the hero. And you don't want to see him win through, dirtier tactics.
I mean, it's not a dirty tactic. It's just that, it doesn't feel like he
earned it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really like Samo's character anyway, so I didn't really want to see him win. Just a personal preference. That's all.
He's supposed to be a lovable goofball, and at certain times, yes, he is, and other times, I'm like, he's just a fucking idiot.
Yeah. That unfortunately, maybe because it's my subtitles, maybe it's just the age of the film. But he's not likable to me. I don't mind a lovable goofball, but this guy, I kept thinking you're an idiot. You're just causing more. You're causing more problems than you're solving.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the beginning of the movie, you definitely get that sense. It's he's just getting himself involved in things that he shouldn't be, and then it just gets worse from there on out. So this scene ends with Samo taking advantage of a person who can't defend himself, essentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, the bad guy's father has now been not immobilized. He's not as powerful anymore. He kind of charged up and he used his attack, and now he's just He's kind of out of energy.
Yeah, he uses Kaioken.
Yeah. There's no sensu beans anywhere.
Exactly. What nerds. Yeah, and then, Samo wins by immobilizing his arms, and he does he punch to the chest. And one thing I want to mention about this whole fight is that I like the practicality of the filmmaking here, because you know what they did in order to make the actors look like they're convincingly falling to the ground is that they took mattresses, and you can tell just by watching this.
I see where you're going.
They took these mattresses. They took out all the sand from underneath the floor. They just kind of like swept to the side and then just buried these mattresses just to be like floor level, so that when they land, it looks convincing enough. But
not to me.
But you can see the sand shifting in a way that looks like there's padding underneath all that.
Yeah, I see what they're doing. They're trying to protect their actors, but you unfortunately you see the sand shift and you're like, why is that happening?
Yeah, I was like, why is the sand shifting like 3 feet away from him? That shouldn't happen.
Right. But it's like that kind of stuff's forgivable. Like you can clearly see he's kind of jumping from a certain height where you don't want to land on solid ground. That's you're endangering your actors.
Yeah.
So you do stuff like that to protect them.
Right.
So I'm okay with.
I'm incredibly forgiving of them for doing that. Like not like I need forgiveness.
Yeah.
They need forgiveness. Or
Right.
like that,
but if you have a keen eye, you'll notice. Stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I'm like, okay, as people who really like to critique things like this or analyze it, like you'll notice things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So. Let's talk about that one fight that we didn't talk about.
Oh man, okay, so that was technically the last fight. We normally end on the last fight, but we're gonna end on the best fight of the film. And when I say best, I mean the worst fight of the film.
Oh man, the head villain, the villain's father, he sends out one of his students to go after Samo Hung. Beggar So is passed out, so he can't help because he's a drunk. He's just a drunk.
He's just a drunk. That's his character. He's a drunk.
Yeah, and so we have a fight between Samo and a Catman.
Catman, yeah.
Catman.
That is the best and the most literal way to describe this character.
In this movie he's Catman, but in another movie we talked about, he was Borat.
Oh shit!
It's Fat Chung. It's Fat Chung.
Oh man, that's the character.
Same actor, yeah.
Wow, it's the actor from Yes, Madam.
Yes, Madam. Yeah.
Wow, dude, what are you doing?
He just does not choose good roles.
Oh man.
It's funny because obviously this is the late 70s, so they didn't have sound production during the set. Mm-hmm. So what they do they would have voice actors dubbing over them when the final edit came out. So they chose the manliest voice for this guy. Oh, I'm gonna capture Samo Hung. Don't worry about it. Like he's gonna beg for his life when I'm squeezing it out of him. And then meanwhile in the middle fight, he's going meow.
So just for context, Samo Hung fights a man, I guess using cat style.
Yes.
And cat style means that you also turn into a cat. This man is literally pantomiming cat movements and cat sounds.
Nothing about this works.
No, it is. It's not fair to say embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
But it is a little embarrassing. I'm going to chalk it up to this is of the time period, because when Samo is utilizing his snake form, he's making the snake sounds as they're doing something.
Well, he's not making it, but that's the thing. Like the movements are making a sound. Have you noticed that? Like he's like flexing, like the air around him makes a sound.
Yeah,
it's not
like
him doing it. Yeah,
sound.
exactly.
And that's okay with the snake because, snakes don't make a distinctive sound for general audiences, but everybody knows the sound a cat makes. And oh my god, there's so many cat noises in this scene.
But you know what? One thing I want to say about the scene is that, again, physically speaking, it's very impressive. He does some things that are very visually, jaw dropping. You're watching it and you're thinking, wow, that is not easy to do. I would hate to take that away from him. However, all the it's hilarious.
Yeah, the dubbing unfortunately really takes you out of it. Oh, also the gentleman's mannerisms, his cat poses, his I don't know what is going on with his hairstyle. It is that typical where
it's a half bald
where you do the half bald in the front, but then his hair is hanging low, so it looks like he has this super high receding hairline.
He looked like Stephen Wright from like the 80s.
Oh, I don't know what he looks like. So yeah, take that visual.
Yeah,
as well. It is a horrendous scene. I
do like parts of the fight. So like you get to see a little bit of the creativity going on here. We'll talk about the actual technicals. Well, not technical. Sorry, the general beginning and end of the fight. So Samo can't beat this guy because he's too fast. He's too nimble. He's too unorthodox because he's a fucking cat.
Yeah, which is cool. I appreciate.
No, what?
Well, I don't like that he's a cat. I like that he is using the nimbleness and the agility of a cat, channeling it into his fighting style and beating Samo because of that.
Sure.
On paper, that sounds great. Visually, it's a fucking mess.
I like that Samo wins using two ways. Like one, he uses the because the villain or the Catman, Black Panther, is using the environment to his advantage. He's holding on to
there's these big pillars in the room, and he's like climbing up it. He's using the ceiling to climb around. Yeah, he's a cat. Essentially.
I don't know if cats can hang upside down like that.
Yes, they can.
Sure.
According to this movie, they can.
Catman. Samo uses oil for his advantage, to make sure that he can't hold on to things properly. Yeah. Which I don't know. That seems like wouldn't work in real. If he's a real cat, it wouldn't work. He has to dig his claws into it.
He no longer has the friction to grasp onto these columns, and he's defeated.
Whatever.
He's defeated because he's now on the ground level. Yeah, I don't know. Oh God.
I love the way that the guy I love the way he poses, because he'll be like, "Oh, you must beware of my ferocious style. I'm going to kill you." Meanwhile, he's on all his fours. He looks like he's about to be like spit roasted.
Yeah. Oh man. I'll give credit to the actor for committing.
He was very committed to the role.
He was committed. I'll give him this. He's working for that paycheck. He was a cat man.
Right.
Yes. I would never show this on my demo reel or demo to anybody. But
when your name's Fat Chung, I don't know.
Yeah.
See, this is something that, again, you are missing out when you watch a literal translation version of this movie. So the beggar, he eventually snaps awake, and he again gives some word of advice to Samo Hung to basically like a cheat sheet on how to beat this guy. He says, use your I guess it is in the subtitles, but he's like, use your sticky feet.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Use your essentially what it means is like not literally, but he says this guy is so fast, just make sure he doesn't jump around. Okay. And you see that visually.
I didn't need that because I get what he did. He literally takes some liquid. I don't know what it is, but he throws it
not
on the
liquid.
column.
No, I'm not talking about the liquid anymore. We're talking about later in the fight where they're fighting around, and Sammo Hung changes his fighting strategy by using his feet to trap the other guy's feet to the ground. Let's say he basically does like an ankle lock. So like when the other guy's like trying to, it's essentially the cat man is jumping around all the entire room. The best way to take this guy down is to make sure he can't jump around, keep him close to you. And the best way to do that is for Samo to just take his foot and wrap it around his foot and just keep him from running around the room. And he does that through several different ways. Like, and when the Catman jumps up in the air, Samo just pulls him down to the floor. And he keeps him from jumping around too much. And I thought like not terms of choreography, but in terms of the philosophy going on here, I thought that was very clever. Like there's a strategy to beat anybody. Essentially, like if when someone has one particular way of fighting, you just have to know how to counterbalance that.
Yeah,
maybe that was lost on you.
I'll give you that, but just to counter, he's fighting a cat man. It's like, no, oh god, this is just no.
I'm trying to go like a more serious route, and you reminded me that this is a cat man.
This is a cat man.
Just put some catnip out there.
It's hard. Unfortunately, it's hard to take seriously.
This scene is very hard to take seriously.
Yeah, that's
just
the
take
problem.
a ball of yarn, just throw it in the middle of the room, like there, done. Now we can run away.
Yeah, like any other animal. I mean, I don't know. Frog. I would have taken frog more seriously.
I honestly don't know if cat stance is a real thing. If it isn't, maybe it was played for comedy because they wanted that. But nothing about the scene seemed funny.
It plays it straight. It
right.
plays it surprisingly straight. So I didn't laugh at it because it feels like they were just like, yeah, Catman, he's intimidating. I'm like, no.
Did you like his intro in the scene? When he bursts out of the coffin and you see this really absurdly wide like fish angle lens and you just see his face like go right up to the camera.
Oh god. See, like cat, no, we all know cats is like household pets. It's not that intimidating. Like if they did like lion, like lynx, jaguar, like a bigger cat.
Those tiger, yeah. Tiger stance is
exactly.
A real thing.
Those are intimidating animals because they can actually hurt you.
But they're not known for fucking hanging upside down from the ceiling.
I would have been fine if the guy was like, oh, this is like I'm doing tiger style, and then he's hanging upside down, but he's like physically showing like claw motions. I would have been okay with that.
Right.
Cats, they're cute household pets. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
He should have done doggy style. That's what he should have done.
Oh god.
Man. So that was the best fight in the movie, right?
Yeah, that hands down the best fight in the movie.
All right, but that is the whole movie.
Yep.
And that is Magnificent
Butcher.
One of the most, sadly, didn't do well when it first came out, but 40 years later, it's one of the more well-known traditional martial arts movies. One of Samo's bigger films. It came in the big 3 movies that just recently came out, right, on Blu-ray?
Yeah.
We had Magnificent Butcher, we had Eastern Condors, and I forgot the last one. Do you remember?
The different movie.
Different movie, sure. Of course, obviously it has to be a different movie. So I think it was Millionaire's Express, if I remember correctly. But anyways, so this is one of Samo's more prolific movies because, it should have been what it was, Drunken Master was for Jackie, but it wasn't, unfortunately.
Right. This is his like classic Sammo Hung movie. Like when people say classic Jackie or classic Jet Li, like this is definitely classic Sammo in that.
Not Enter the Fat Dragon?
God. No. Actually, I think I prefer that movie over this.
No,
Yeah,
shut up.
No, because man, like overall, this was hard. This was a little difficult for me to sit through.
Really?
Yeah,
oh, man.
yeah. I mentioned earlier, like, I'm always afraid of going backwards with these old films, and I wasn't crazy about the story. I wish they removed all the kung fu elements because I think it's not a bad thriller. There's like a lot of mistaken identity. There's a lot of revenge going back and forth. I think I would have been okay if this was just some sort of like drama thriller. The fact that you added comedy, you had this drunken drunken master, for lack of a better word, teaching him. It didn't do it for me, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, what about the fighting then?
It's weird. It's weird saying this, but there's too much fighting. There's actually too much fighting.
Too much of a good thing, or maybe not too much.
Yeah, it's there's so much fighting where you don't get a lot of cuts, and I found myself wanting edits. I wanted a change in pace. I wanted a change in the visual, and it doesn't give it to me enough. There are definitely moments. There's a few fights I like. Like I like the Yunbyo fight, and the guy, the monkey man with a pole. I like those a lot, but they're inconsequential to the plot. So it's like what's going on there?
Okay. Is that your whole thought on the movie?
Man, like I don't think I could recommend this actually.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Like both fights and the
So
movie itself?
to clarify, if you like martial arts films and you've never seen this, yes, you should watch this. I always give a recommendation for classics. Even if you don't like it, you should become familiar with what came before what we have now. You know,
Okay.
Respect where the films have come from. I'm always big on that. This movie does have some cool moments in it, like the Wong Fei Hung calligraphy fight.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's good. If you're a newer martial arts fan, it'll probably feel pretty dated, but if you realize the context of it, it's pretty clever.
Sure.
There's too much fighting.
Oh my God.
I don't understand.
That's a bad thing.
I love fight scenes, but there's way too many fights in this where I got lost. Like I like talking about the technical aspects about fights, but I can't remember all of them because there's just so much. There's so much going on.
Right. I think it's experiential thing. Like, sure, it's hard for us to remember it, but when you watch it, it's different, right? Would you agree? Because you can't remember it all right now, like recalling the movie, but when you're watching it, you might be like, oh yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. That's my take, at least.
Right. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, I watched this movie like 10 or 15 years ago. I can see why I forgot it because I think just for me this doesn't really hold up that well. I definitely appreciate a lot of the stuff that went into it, but the movie as a whole, I think I can't recommend.
As a really? Okay.
Yeah, as a whole, it's kind of a tough watch. I was watching it, and I was just like, as a whole, it's not hitting those wants for me.
Okay, gotcha. Huh. I think this is the most we've ever been polarized in terms of opinions for any movie we've ever watched. I am totally on opposite side of the fence from you. I like this movie a lot, but you're absolutely right. The fight scenes do go on quite a bit. But I appreciate them because it's like I feel like I'm getting a workout just watching them because they're doing a lot of incredibly acrobatic and incredibly physically demanding moves that I do appreciate the fact that they're doing all in one takes. They're doing long wides that aren't interrupted. Appreciative, yes, but I do agree that they overstay their welcome. Yeah, so it's a mixed bag for me when it comes to the actual fight durations. They're way too long. You're not wrong about that whatsoever. And there are things in the plot themselves that could be shaved off. For example, a lot of the things involving the comedy could just not be in the movie, right? So we have the beggar teaching teaching Samo how to cook cook beef trotters, pig
Oh,
trotters.
pig trotters, yeah.
And then that whole thing was
Oh,
just like,
God,
I
yeah,
don't
that
fucking
was-
care about
right,
this. I don't
right, right.
just like this is lasting too long. It's not funny. And like I get it. He doesn't understand any of this. Move on.
Yeah.
Things like that could have been shaved off for time, and yeah, like we could have a more concise movie. Because honestly, we have mentioned that the plot itself can be kind of complicated, but if it was a little more streamlined, we had a little more straightforward plot without all that fluff, it would have been far more interesting. I don't know if I'd say that taking out the kung fu and turning this into a thriller only or a drama would have been the way to go. I do like the plot and it fits in with the kung fu, but we just have a little bit more padding than I would like. Just shave that off and it would have been just good. I would have been happy with that.
I think so. If you're gonna keep the kung fu, I think maybe just take out the comedy because it's kind of a serious story.
Yeah.
I mean, you get
Well, they had to keep the comedy.
You get a attempted rape scene. I understand you should try to like alleviate the tension from that moment, but it seems so out of place because the movie is very lighthearted up until that, not up until that moment, but yeah, like you don't have attempted rape and then you have somebody stealing somebody's wife. Like you can have that be completely comedic, but once you get to the end of the film and then you have this guy literally trying to sexually take advantage of this woman, it doesn't fit.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong about that. I completely agree with that. I don't know. I know what they're trying to do was, again, historically speaking, trying to match what Drunken Master did. I don't know if it was just a straight up dry, movie without any comedy. Not without any, but like without comedy.
You can have lighthearted moments, but you can tell there are comedic moments in this movie.
Sure.
Like
sure.
the whole opening with him getting his pigs stolen and then like stealing
That
it
was-
back. Yeah,
even that was not
Yeah, like
necessary.
I hated. I like it was. It's too dated. I don't want to be so harsh on that because that's maybe the comedy of the time, sure. And they're trying to set up his character, but obviously watching this now, it doesn't hold up for me.
Sure. Okay. That I understand that. Well, with that aside, I think I'm not so black and white about the fight, like watching these fights without context thing. So there's two fights that you should watch without context. There's the beginning fight with Kwan Tak Hing in it, which it's just good and all because if you love martial arts movies at all, you need to watch. It's essentially the same as like watching a horror movie and you're like you don't know who Bela Lugosi is. It's like or Boris Karloff. You might not want to watch their movies, but you should at least respect them.
Yeah.
That's essentially what this fight scene is like. You're seeing this guy doing his thing on screen for the final time, playing the character that he's most known for. Like you should at least watch this. This is one of the most iconic scenes you can possibly watch. And you can watch that without context for sure. And then the other one being the Yun Bu fight with that you mentioned before. Like you can watch that without context too because that doesn't fit with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
The early scenes in the movie, I guess you could kind of watch it without. I don't know. The rest of the fight scenes in the movie, I guess you have to watch with the context of the movie because you don't understand why it's happening. And yes, in terms of the athleticism involved in the movie, it is impressive, but I can see why it could bore people to tears. For me, I think what resonated for me was the motivations behind the characters and why they were doing the things they were doing. I actually do like the final fight scene in a weird way because I understand why the villain is motivated in trying to kill Samo Hung at the end. Like I get it. Like I know why he wants to do this.
Yeah.
And I actually like that. Without the motivation, watching this scene, I would be bored to tears because I don't know why he's doing this. I don't know why he's so upset.
Yeah. And so I'm very conflicted because I understand the villain's father's motivation, but I don't want to root for him or against him because I don't think he's in the wrong.
He's not in the wrong.
So
I don't think he's wrong at all.
It's very.
I'm glad they didn't kill him at the end.
Yeah,
I would have been very upset.
It's very odd when you're watching the movie and you understand obviously the more details that we're glazing over.
Yeah.
So this fight scene just going on forever, and I'm just thinking like I don't think I want him to lose or I don't want him to win.
I don't want him to lose, but I don't want him to die. Like I was afraid Samo was gonna kill him. He shouldn't die.
Yeah, you're correct. He shouldn't die.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve that. But just like all movies at the era, you don't get a resolution. The movie just fucking ends.
Well, it ends on a freeze frame.
Yeah.
like all good films, you should end on a freeze frame with motion blur, and you're just like, what's going on here?
Just like this podcast.
Yes.
Just like this episode, right? When we just we keep talking and we just kind of stop all of a sudden.